Hello friends, welcome to my YouTube channel, The Vibepreneur, where we do vibe coding and build automations. And today we are going to continue with our Moonlighting session where we do vibe coding and we build apps. And last week I had started building one of the Flutter apps, which was a travel app. So today I'm planning to continue with the same app, and I hope you'll enjoy the session with me. And by the way, it is a live stream, so you can always connect with me, chat with me, ask any questions or any doubts or anything that you want to chat with me. Okay, so let's quickly start over today's Moonlighting session, vibe coding the Flutter app. So I'm going to open the workspace of the same app that I was building previously. And it was a travel planning Flutter app. So last week I announced that I'm going to build some 7 or 8 apps that I have actually built throughout my entire software development career, right? So one of the app which I had actually worked for a company was a travel planning company. So they had built their own app. And I'm a little bit inspired by that app, but I'm building it completely from scratch, and it will be a completely vibe coded app, a Flutter app, and I'm using Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro model for my vibe coding. So I have opened up my workspace, and this is how my workspace looks. So if you have already not watched the previous video, I will suggest you please watch it, because we have already created the structure of a Flutter app, right? So we have set up a boilerplate Flutter app, and then we have also gone ahead and added few more screens within that app, and all of that we have done using Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro model. So if you have watched my previous videos, you know that for every app that I do vibe coding, I keep a develop.md file, which is basically a development plan. And within this development plan, we have set up some milestones to build this app. So there are these milestone 1, milestone 2, milestone 3, 4, 5, and so on. So up to we have around 6 or 7 milestones. So we have 6 milestones within this app. And as per as my memory confirms that we have actually done the milestone 1, entire milestone 1 of that of this app was actually completed in our last session. Okay, by the way, in the last session I was facing an issue which was related to the cloud function that was also part of this app, right? So this app is a Flutter app, but it actually also has a Google Cloud function deployed, or a Firebase Cloud function deployed. Google Cloud function and Firebase functions both are the same thing, because Firebase under the hood uses Google's GCP infrastructure. Okay, so within that cloud function we were facing an issue related to permission, and that permission issue was related to the IAM, right, identity and access management, within which there was a particular role required to be added to my user who had who was running that cloud function app, right? So after I added the role to the principal who was running that cloud function app, and the role was cloud data store user, right? Cloud data store user was the role, and after I've added that role to the principal who was running that cloud function, I will make sure I will have some sort of a screenshot ready for you next time to show you like how it looks, because this is a bit of a sensitive information, so I cannot show it on a live stream. But again, let me explain what I did. So the cloud function was actually run by a principal, right? And within that principal, I had to add a role, and that role was cloud data store user. After I added that role, my cloud function was triggering and my app was working fine. Okay, so let's do that. Let's see where we had reached previously, and for that let's try to run our app. So let me launch the new terminal window for it. And within one window, I'm going to actually launch the Android emulator, which is essentially an Android skin, right? Which is basically the Android. Sorry, let me just quickly adjust my screen. So this is a dummy Android phone sort of, which we are using to debug or test our app, right? And this has already launched the app, because when I closed this emulator last time, so my app was already running. So when I restarted the emulator, so it has directly came to the same screen. But anyways, we are actually going to run the app itself as well. So let's go to our app, and we will run this command, flutter run. And when we run this command, it is going to take our Flutter code base, and we have this Android project within this Flutter code base, right? So using this Android project, okay, I have actually got a question, and I hope you guys also can see that. So Lata Shri ji is asking a question. Hi sir, good evening. Are you building the Flutter app for travel from scratch? Because of too many errors last time we couldn't follow. No Lata Shri, I'm not building it from scratch, because I'm continuing it from where I have left off last time, right? I cannot do the exact same process that I did last time and do it today as well. But you can always watch the previous video. And I will also show you the issue we have solved, and we have actually improved upon that. So let me quickly run the app. So so the app has actually restarted it. Actually, I missed it while talking to you in the screen, but as I can see, the activity screen has got completely refreshed. Earlier there were some values in it, right? So so this app has restarted, and within this now we can enter the values and see. So last time, whenever I was trying to click on this generate itinerary button, I was facing the issue. Let's see if that issue is still there or it has got resolved. So last time, if you remember, we were never able to reach to this screen, which is the itinerary display screen. Okay, and it was happening because this app, as I mentioned, the Flutter app was trying to execute a cloud function, right? And that cloud function was not completed successfully, and we were not getting a success response. So it was not moving to this next itinerary detail screen. But that issue has been solved. So now we are receiving this itinerary data, right? By the way, this is a dummy itinerary data, right? And it is actually coming from the cloud function. So let's quickly check the Firebase. And we'll see the log of the execution of our cloud function. So that way it will be sure that our cloud function did got triggered correctly. So for that, we'll go to functions. And this is our function get itinerary, right? So we'll quickly check its logs. And those who had connected with me last time, if you remember, we were finding the issue of that error, permission denied error here itself, right? But you see, so this is all the logs that is generated from our Google Cloud function. And within this log, and this is today's execution, which happened at 30th of June at 9 p.m. sort of. So this is 10 p.m. almost. So it's just a minute back while we were testing, right? So these are all the logs, and we can see itinerary details from London to Paris. And then the issue was actually happening at this step, right? After this log, we were not able to get this itinerary created part because our cloud function is trying to record the itinerary details in a Cloudflare store. All right, let me quickly show it. So when I go to my Firestore database, right, we would see our itinerary details have actually got saved here as well. You see, within this itineraries collection, we see there is a itinerary data saved, right? And it has got saved from our Google Cloud function. So there are quite a bit components in this whole flow. So let me describe you a little bit what's happening, right? So we have this Flutter app, which is running in our Android emulator, right? This is our Android emulator, and it is running a Flutter app. Then this Flutter app uses Firebase, right? Firebase as a backend. Now, what all it uses within the Firebase, right? So it uses two things: Cloud function, right? These functions, and a Firestore database, right? So Cloud function we are using as a compute part, right? So as you know, any app needs a server where it runs its processing. So we are doing it in a serverless way. That way it is more scalable and more cost effective. So Cloud function is the best way, where you have, if a short compute requirement, you can run your processes within Cloud function quickly. Your Cloud function will trigger the CPU immediately, and after your processing is done, the CPU will be turned off, and you will not be charged for the entire of month, right? And then we are using for the database this Firestore database, right? So Cloud function actually. So let's do one thing. I'll quickly show you the code, and if you don't understand that code, that is completely fine, right? I just want you to sort of read the code and try to see. Okay, so this is so our Cloud function lives inside this directory called functions, and the entire logic of this function is inside this index.js file, right? So basically this Cloud function is a Node.js app. Okay, so those of you who are already familiar with Node.js, Cloud function. So within the Cloud function, we run the app in various environments. It could be like Python, PHP, Node.js, Ruby, Go, whatever, right? So we have actually deployed a Node.js based app within our Cloud function, right? So let's see how what it does, right? So first thing is it initializes the app, right? This admin is coming from the Firebase admin SDK, and this is basically to connect it with the Firebase resources and perform some basic authentication and so on, right? Then so we have this function generate itinerary, right? This is the name of our function, and within our this index.js file, we have exported this generate itinerary variable, right, as a function. Okay, so by the way, this line is a boilerplate line. It's a boilerplate code. Okay, what it means is, let me quickly tell you. So first of all, we have defined a function, right, which will get triggered, and we have named this function, right? We have stored this function in a named variable, generate itinerary, which is also the name of our Cloud function. Now within this function, let's say what is happening. So first of all, we are logging a simple log value here, generate itinerary function triggered. Okay, so we must expect to see this log appearing here, right? So this log has actually appeared here, generate itinerary function triggered, right? This is coming from our Cloud function. Okay, then another log. So by the way, whatever data we have called to this function, right, we have sent, when we triggered this function, we have sent some data, because as you can imagine, in the server, when we are doing processing, we need some data there, and that's what our Android app, our Flutter app, sends to the Firebase, okay, within this data variable. Now I'll take a pause. So I'm not going in a much detail like how cloud functions work and so on, right? But I'm giving a general idea how this whole thing works. There are a lot of detailed things, explanations which are missing here, and currently in this video, I'm sorry, but I cannot tell you everything in very details, okay? But I'm trying to give you a general understanding how this works. So our Flutter app, when calls the function, sends some data, right? And what data? As you might imagine, it sends these two values, right, that we enter: source and destination. Okay, and then this source and destination comes within the data, and that's what we are extracting, data.source, right? So I hope you have the basic understanding of JavaScript programming language, because this source is a key within this data object, right? So we have two keys, source and destination, and we are storing the values of source and destinations in these variables, okay? And then we are writing another log which tells, okay, this is the value of source got stored in the source constant, and the value of destination got stored in the destination constant, right? And this is what we are getting as a log here, generating itinerary from London to Paris. So this particular log line, right? This log line indicates that we have successfully sent the values entered within our this app, right? The input, source and destination, those values have been successfully reached to this cloud function, okay? Because then only our cloud function knows what source and destination values you want to get the itinerary for, okay? I hope it makes sense. All right, now moving on. So we have a dummy itinerary timeline, right? So which is within our cloud function itself, right? See, ideally, and by the way, Gemini is smart enough to write a bit of a to-do here. That is the more detailed implementation, how this itinerary will be actually implemented, right? So it has mentioned use Google Maps API to get route and duration, then use Google Places API to find points of interest and generate a timeline with sightseeing, breaks, etc., and save the itinerary to Firestore, right? So the Google Gemini 2.5 Pro has skipped these steps, okay? And there is a fair reason, because within our milestone 1, we were not targeting to completely finish the implementation of our itinerary, right? So you have to understand what the goal is, right? And this is one thing which tells the intelligence of the model also, right? See, within our milestone 1, our goal is to set up project foundation and core UI, right? So within this project foundation, it just needed some some sort of a basic setup to existing, but not necessarily all the details implemented, right? Because you see, milestone 2, itinerary generation engine, this is actually where the details will be implemented, okay? So that's where Google Gemini 2.5 Pro has shown its smartness, and it has made sure, okay, we can send some data from the cloud function to back to our Flutter app. And what the data is, it is this one. So this is an array, right? A JavaScript array which has itinerary details. So an array of objects, right? And by the way, so it creates a itinerary, another itinerary variable, right? And then it stores it into Firestore, right? So admin.firestore collection itineraries, add this itinerary. So this itinerary constant, right, which has source, destination, and the values of this dummy timeline, right? It gets stored under the itineraries collection of our Firestore data store, right? So if we see here, right, this is our Firestore's itinerary collection, and within this we have an entry which is a unique ID of the document, and we have destination, source, and our entire timeline of the itinerary, okay? And this is the same so this dummy timeline, right, this dummy itinerary has been stored, right? And so let's compare it what we have received. So along with it got saved in the Firestore, it has also sent it back as a response. So if you see, this function, right? This entire function, get itinerary cloud function, returns a response, right? Which is this ref itinerary ID. Okay, so this itinerary ID is returned. And by the way, there is also another log we are writing, itinerary created with ID this, right? And this log also we can verify within our log, which says itinerary created with ID this. So this way we have a basic flow working. We have our Android app or a Flutter app which calls a Firebase function, which does some process, receives the data, does some processing on the data, stores the values within the Firestore, and returns us back some values, right? So this itinerary, dummy itinerary, is what we are seeing in our UI. If you see a start, trip from source to destination, London to Paris is our source to destination, right? And then it also has a time which it has not set, and there is a type which is travel. So like that, there is a start, lunch break, sightseeing, and end. So all these itinerary details has been sent to our app also, which we can see, right? Now, so far, this is what we have actually done till our last session, and this screen was actually there in our last session also, but we were not able to reach to this screen because our function was facing an issue, right? So we have resolved that issue and we are able to reach to this function. Now my today's goal is to make this screen or let's do one thing. Since it is vibe coding, we don't have any plan. No, we don't decide anything, AI does, right? We are sort of facilitators, right? So we tell AI to do something and it does by itself, right? Everything. So it has created this development plan, and I can completely trust on it to do whatever it feels it want to do, right? So let's continue with that. So first thing is I'm going to change. Okay, by the way, I'm not sure why it keeps switching to some open router thing, but I always use Google Gemini 2.5. So I think in Cline it has introduced some bug or something with some new updates that it keeps switching my selection there. Anyways, so let's start today's vibe coding now. Okay, so first thing what I'm going to do, because it's a completely new session, the request that we are going to send to Gemini, it does not know anything about the app. So we have to sort of warm up its context. We have to inform it which app we are building, right? We have to inform the details of this app, and that's why we have this develop.md file. It's going to read all the details of the app in this file, right? And also we'll mention that milestone 1 was done, and proceed ahead with next milestone. Okay, and this is all I'm going to tell it in this prompt. Okay, and I'll keep it in the plan mode just to make sure that it understood about the app. Then I'll switch it to act mode so it can start editing the files. Okay, so let's keep it in the plan mode, and I'm going to give it a prompt. So I have mentioned that go through this file to read the details for this Flutter travel app, right? But I'm also going to add few more details so that it knows where we exactly stand, right? I'm going to mention we have a cloud function. It's storing the values within the Firestore. I have tested these, right? Okay, so I have mentioned it. Let me read the prompt again. I lost the chain of thought. go through the develop.md file to read through the development plan for this Flutter app for travel planning. Along this app, we also have deployed a cloud function which is getting executed and storing values in Firestore. We are using Firebase as our backend. Okay. So far so good. Let me know what did you understood about this app. Okay. So just I want to sort of hear it from its own mouth, right? What it thinks it has understood about the app. So we both has to be in the same page, right? Gemini has to understand the app as I understand the app, right? If it has some different mental model about this app, there could be a problem there, right? So let me understand from its own words what it thinks this app is about, right? Based on development file, I understand that you're building a Flutter travel itinerary planner app. Here's the summary. Core purpose of the app is to automatically generate a travel itinerary for a user. User provides source and destination. App will create a detailed timeline. How it works, architecture. There's a Flutter app, supports cloud platform. Have any screen to visualize the final itinerary and interacting timeline style. Yes, cloud functions. Engine of the app communicates with the external APIs, right? Firestore generates itinerary. Okay. You have completed the initial project setup. You have completed the in progress. Cool. Great. So it has also identified, because within our milestone, so by the way, we have these sort of hints added to our milestones, and we means Gemini has added using its own smartness, right? Completed. So that's how, when within this session, when Gemini API again reads through this file, it knows that this is completed and these tasks are done, and what is in progress is this, and there also we have few things done and we have few things started. Okay, so we have a very crystal clear status about this app, that where we stand, and Gemini also knows it. Okay, so within this session means this session Gemini is warmed up about our app. Right now I'm completely confident. I'll just tell it, okay, go ahead, make further progress to this app, and then I'll switch it to act mode, right? Okay, so I have switched our Cline from plan mode to act mode, and I've given it that basic prompt, go ahead, building this app, right? And so it is, so this is the Cline's feature where it takes permission for reading any file, editing any file, creating any file, right? Which is a good thing, which I want. It's my personal preference. I want full control. So I want to keep this kind of control with me. Okay, anyways, okay, user wants to proceed building, next step, continuing itinerary generation. Okay, so it is continuing with the itinerary generation. So let it do that. I want to read some file, and I have approved the reading of the files. By the way, guys, if you see, there is a timer running here, Q&A in 30-ish minutes, right? So that is, I have put a dedicated slot for sort of a Q&A with all the live viewers, and so after 30 minutes, for around 5 to 10 minutes, based on how many questions we get, I'm going to do a dedicated Q&A, right? So we'll sort of pause our stream, right? And we will do a Q&A for some 5 minutes or so, and then we'll get back to our work. And so I have a request: whatever questions you have in your mind, you can please put it on the chat, and I will respond to your questions in our dedicated Q&A slot, which is just going to happen after almost 30-ish minutes. Okay, and by the way, our very smart Google Gemini 2.5 Pro model is continuing building our Flutter and Firebase app. And it is asking us to provide it maps API key. Put the maps API key inside an env file. Okay, so it is asking me to provide the maps API key, right? As we saw, this app requires maps API, Google's maps API, and Google's places API, right? So it is going to need those API keys. But the good practice for building your app is to use an env file and store all your secrets, all these kind of API keys, right? Never hard code it within your app, right? Put it in the env file and let it read from the env file. Okay, so I'm going to tell it use env file as a placeholder, use env file to put a placeholder API key for now, which I'll replace with the existing API key. Okay, inside an env file and use a placeholder for it now. Okay, so this is a good practice. This is a secure practice. This way you'll never leak your API key, and if somebody else gets access to your API key, they can abuse it, and you may have to incur some extra cost due to it, and so on, right? And it just asked me to run a command which is npm install within our functions. So by the way, it is updating our cloud functions right now, because most of our itinerary detail logic is going to live within our cloud functions. Okay, and see, it is quite smart, right? So Gemini knows these env files, they're sensitive files. We should never check in these files in the GitHub. That's why it is adding this .env file in the git ignore, right? So so basically it is trying to make sure that env file, along with those API keys, should not get pushed into the GitHub. So one thing you have to appreciate about this vibe coding, see, parallelly you have to work like in a Dart file, right, which is your Flutter project, and also in a cloud function which is written in Node.js, and what kind of context switching you need to do for it. It is really taxing for a human brain to switch context between a Flutter app and a Node.js app, and this app is actually, right now it is quite simple, but it has a full potential to become moderately complex, right? And working on these kind of apps with the help of vibe coding, with the help of this kind of AI model, actually relieves us with a lot of stress that we have to just go through for only the context switching, sometimes building the cloud function part within the Node.js, sometimes within the Flutter. And now it is asking us to run another command, which is to run the flutter pub get, because it has added some new dependency. So I'll let it run this command. Okay, so we have received this green message. So every time we get this kind of green message, that means and it is Cline's the Cline, which is the agent we are using within our Visual Studio Code, right, to help us with building this app. So this, when it sends green message, that means it thinks, right, again, it thinks that it has completed the tasks that you have given it, right? Now there has and why I have highlighted this term it thinks, because you have to read through it what it has done, you have to verify it, you have to test it what it has done, because sometimes what it thinks may not be what you want actually within the task, right? So cross verification is very, very important. So that's what we're going to do now. First, let me read through what it has done, or what it thinks it has done. I have completed the core development work. Backend summary: the Firebase Cloud function is now fully implemented. It securely handles the Google Maps API. It successfully calls the Google Directions API. It then uses Google Places API. Finally, it constructs a complete itinerary, including a timeline of events. Okay. Then it has also implemented some front-end itinerary screen has been significantly upgraded. I have integrated timeline title package to provide a visually appealing vertical timeline for displaying the itinerary. The screen now features a generated itinerary from Firestore in real time. Right, and foundation of your itinerary generation visualization is complete. You can run the app, generate itinerary, and see it displayed beautifully on the screen. Great. Okay. Okay, so again, it thinks it has done all these things, but I have to now first ask, so we have a cloud function, I know that needs updating, right? And we have our Flutter app that we need to run. So let me ask itself, like, how do I run this app? Okay. Yeah. He's asking how to deploy the changes. So first is deploy a cloud function and run the Flutter app. Okay, just these two things we have to do. So we have to run deploy the cloud function. For that, it has mentioned we need to run this command. Okay, so so let me stop our Flutter app. Let me quickly see what all. So I have my functions directory here, my Firebase JSON here. That means I can run this Firebase deploy command from here. Okay, but so we have this autocomplete of this command, but I know it will fail because we are not in our version node 20 NA10. Sorry, version node 20 node. Sorry, Node.js of version 20, because okay, I have to also log in to the Firebase. So let me quickly do that. Okay, so our Firebase CLI has successfully logged in, and now we can deploy our not Firestore rules. Oh, it was wrong. Functions, right? So right now we are updating our Firebase cloud function, right? Which is, as I told, lives within this index.js file. That itself lives within this functions directory. Okay. So it has implemented all this logic. If you remember, just now a few minutes back, I was explaining you what this function does, And if you compare that code with the new code which is there, so there is quite a bit difference here. And this is all the new code that Gemini 2.5 Pro has added to create that itinerary for our app, right? Including calling the Google Maps API, Google Directions API also it called, right? By the way, a disclaimer, I cannot fast forward these times when I'm doing something and the process is stuck because it is waiting on something, because it's a live stream. But of course, if you're watching it in a recorded YouTube video after the live stream, you can skip through it, and you would not miss out on anything. But unfortunately, I cannot fast forward it while I'm in the live stream. Okay. So we have received a successful deployment complete response. That means our cloud function has got updated, which is a good thing. By the way, it is still does not has these API keys, right? So these API keys we need to add now, and let's try to do that. So I'll quickly show you how you can get your own Google Maps API key. Okay. And I'm a little bit nervous because I don't want to leak out any sensitive information of my own. So I have to do it very, very carefully. So for that, the first thing you need to do is you need to go to your own Google Cloud Console homepage. Okay. After you go to your homepage, you can click on the API and services here, or you can actually directly search for Google Maps here. But let me do it step by step. You click on API and services. And here you will have all the APIs and services listed, and there is a button for enabling APIs and services. So you click this API and service, enable API and services. Okay. Then here you have like list of Google APIs which are all available. Okay. So here we'll say Google Maps. Excuse me. What happened to Google Maps? Okay, we need this Maps JavaScript API. So let's click on this Maps JavaScript API because our cloud function is in Node.js, right? So we need the JavaScript API for it. I'm going to enable it. So our Maps JavaScript API is enabled because here it shows disable option. That means it is enabled. I'm just making sure that if there is any other API that we may need to enable. It mentioned it needed direction API as well, but I don't see in the environment variable. So let me read through what it told. Calls the Google Direction API. But I did not see within the code Directions API. It only has Google Maps API. but it says here it's using places API, but it is using the maps API key. So anyways, I'll leave it itself to figure it out, right? So we have this maps JavaScript enabled. Okay, so now what we're going to do is let's go to overview and let's see our enabled APIs first. This is maps JavaScript API. Okay, so then we need to go to our credentials, and these are our API keys. Okay, so I'll click on create credential and I'll click on API key here. Okay, by the way, this is my API key which has just got generated. Okay, and I'm going to keep it within only this session. So even if you copy it, you'll not be able to use it for anything because I will delete this API key just after this session. But I need my app to be tested, so I need to keep this API key for running this app, right? And I'm trying to limit this API key to be only used for the maps. So for all these APIs, I can use this API key, okay, which is all related to our Google Maps, right? So what I'm going to do is within our env file, I'm going to paste this API key here. Okay, this is where we have to put our API key. So after we save it, we can again deploy our cloud function so that our cloud function will be updated with this API key. So I'll just run this command again. So let me quickly recap what I just shown you. I went to my Google Cloud Console. I enabled the Maps API. I created a API key, right? And made sure that it is only for all the maps related features. And I have pasted this API key here. And just to make it sure that I will definitely delete this API key or rotate it. So this API key will not be valid after this session. Okay. By the way, friends, just to remind you again, our Q&A, dedicated Q&A is going to start after just after 9 minutes. So if you have any questions, you can put it over the chat, and I will respond to your questions within this dedicated Q&A, which will happen based on how many questions we get from 5 minutes to 10 minutes and so on, right? So if you have any questions, just drop it over our chat window. Again, I cannot fast forward this time where it is actually taking to update this cloud function because it's a live stream. So I'm not apologizing, but I'm just letting you know this is kind of a limitation of live stream where we are actually doing everything live, right? So we are waiting for this cloud function to get updated. After it is done, my cloud function will be configured with the API key and ready, and then I'll run the Flutter app, and we'll see what progress we have made over our Flutter app. Okay, so now next thing is I have to run my Flutter app using Flutter run. Okay, I see we are getting some questions, which is a good thing, and I'll definitely respond to your questions just after this countdown of our Q&A will run out. Okay, so we have this app, and it is still asking for source and destination, and at the same time, so let me enter the source and destinations, and we'll click on generate itinerary. And I'm pretty sure our cloud function could be giving us some issues. So let me do one thing. Let me straight away go to the logs of my cloud function and see it there, what kind of error we might be facing. So I'm trying to, yes. Okay. So we have some helpful message this time, which should help us rectify this error faster. So this is the error. It says Google Maps API error. You are calling a legacy API which is not enabled for your project. To get new features and more functionality, switch to the Places API or Routes API. Okay. So this time we have actually got a error with a message which is quite helpful and straightforward, that what is wrong we are doing and what we need to do. So as I understand, Gemini has integrated Google Maps API, which has sort of deprecated, it has become legacy API, whereas we have to use Google Places API, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this exact error message and put it to Gemini, excuse me, and ask it to redo our cloud function using these newer advanced APIs. Okay, so let's quickly do that. Okay, so I have sent it the error message, and also I have mentioned that you have it seems like you have done the legacy maps API implementation, but you were supposed to use the places API, and it is basically making those changes now. So let me read what its response was. The user is reporting an error from Google Maps API. The error message says you're calling a legacy API which is not enabled for our project. Indicate that I have used older deprecated Google Maps platform APIs. I need to update the cloud function to use the new places API and routes API. And based on that, it is updating all those implementation, right? So let's hope for the best, that whatever implementation it does now actually works. So again, I will tell my app I have to deploy my cloud function, because as we just saw, right, it has done the changes within our function, and we also sort of observe the diffs that it has done, right? So that changes were within our cloud function, so we are updating our cloud function. Okay. Okay, let me quickly switch to these chat questions, because anyways we are waiting, and let's not waste the time. The time is almost running out, and I saw somebody said can't stay that long, and he's Ranvijay Kumar Singh. So Ranvijay, I'm sorry if I'm making you hold for longer, because as you know, we need to have a dedicated Q&A sessions, so I can respond to all the questions, right? And and while I'm concentrating on my work, so again the context switching of answering the questions over the chat, and at the same time building the app, kind of sort of little bit taxing. Okay, anyways, so let me quickly read through. So after Latashri, we have Ranvijay's comments that what are we doing tonight? Okay, so Ranvijay, last week I had started building this Flutter app, right? Which is a travel planning app. Okay, so last week we had built 2 screens of this Flutter app. Also, we have integrated a cloud function which was giving us a dummy itinerary timeline. Okay, today we are continuing building the same Flutter app, and our today's main agenda is to implement the milestone 2, right? Because if you see, we had actually created a development plan which is structured within milestones. Okay, so last week we implemented the milestone 1, and in fact few parts of milestone 2 were also implemented, but this week we are implementing milestone 2, which is itinerary generation engine, right? This is in progress. And by the way, I should have actually updated my within my stream. I have added few features, and I should have added my title. I should have updated my title with this. Okay, so basically today we are working on this itinerary generation engine, which is the itineraries that our travel planning app will give us, right? It has to be generated, the logic of it, right? So it's basically sort of the core algorithm of our app, right? We have a source and a destination, and when we enter the source and destination in our app, it has to give us an itinerary, right? So where this itinerary will come from, right? Basically from your source to destination, on the way, what all where you can have breakfast, where you can do sightseeing, right? Where you can do some sort of a stay, right? On the way, any like museums and things like that. So that kind of a itinerary has to be generated between source and a destination, right? So the core algorithm of that itinerary generation, which involves using Google Maps API and all these, right? So that needs to be implemented, and that is what Gemini is implementing today. Okay, so I hope that answers you. If you still have any doubt, you still have any question, please you can ask me. And then he says, can you tell me some good difference between Flutter and React Native? Okay, so see, the primary difference between Flutter and React Native is Flutter uses Dart as its programming language, and React Native is built on JavaScript, right? That is like the most starkest difference, and that is where its usability sort of comes in. So you have to learn a new programming language to work on Flutter, right? So it's sort of a barrier. Instead, if you're already a JavaScript developer, you're a Node.js developer, you would not feel difficult in working on React Native, right? That is the number one difference. Okay, number two difference is Flutter is actually supported by Google, right? So it is built by Google engineers, and so that's why in every Google I/O you will have dedicated sessions where they tell you updates about Flutter, right? So they have a good sort of a roadmap behind it, a good sustainable ecosystem behind it, right? Although it is like if you face some issues, you still don't get so much solutions for it, because it is still not that much widely popular, again due to its barrier of learning a new programming language. However, React Native's ecosystem, right? Although React Native has been very widely adopted, but I'm talking about its development ecosystem, right? So React, although was supported by Facebook, right? React library was built by Facebook and was heavily supported by Facebook as an open source platform, but React Native was not so much, right? Moreover, quite a while back, almost like 4 or 5 years back, it was mostly dominant by Expo. Okay, so the thing is, it is my opinion that React Native's progress has stalled, right? It's development progress I'm talking about. It is not receiving much updates. There are no new features or no new supports or new developer experience, user experience things are coming out. So that's where React Native has sort of it already has a lot of battery inside it, right? And already a wide adoption, but development wise it is not progressing much. Whereas Flutter, although has not got so much wide adoption, but since Google's push is behind it, so it is having a good roadmap for it. So that's why you get like performance benefits, like you get some new features that they keep launching every year. But with React Native, it's not that much, right? Okay, so other than that, why should I choose Flutter over React Native? So I would suggest why. By the way, let me tell you one thing. First of all, the whole selling point of this build once and run everywhere, right? It is not so easy. Okay, so Flutter is actually a good option for someone who want to target Android heavily, but iOS not so much, right? Or they're building an app which is not so heavily dependent on the core features of iOS, because iOS is very difficult in terms of its security and these things, right? So and that's why iOS has built its own programming language, Swift, and then another framework on top of it, Swift UI, right? Which actually makes it very simple for anyone who has done React Native and even Flutter, like this kind of a declarative programming, right? So Swift and Swift UI implements these, and it actually makes it much easier to do. So if you have a rather simple app, right, which is not dependent heavily on iOS's core features, with Flutter you can target Android's core features effectively, right? So with Flutter you can build as performant Android app as you will build in a native Kotlin or Java, right? But iOS app not so much. So what my thought process is, if you are building a simple app, go with Flutter, target both Android and iOS. But if you are building a complex app which requires these native core features of either Android or iOS, then I would not recommend Flutter. Not for iOS. For Android, yes, you can build using Flutter, but for iOS, not. And actually, this is I had shown in my previous stream also. So I was implementing a set as wallpaper feature. I had created a wallpaper app, right? So within this app, let me see. I think it is in this itself. So if I try to launch this wallpaper app. So this is my AI wallpaper generation app, right? Which I built in another live stream. So if I, select a theme and generate a wallpaper, let's say sci-fi, and click generate. So this was also built on Flutter. Okay, maybe something wrong. Maybe some API key somewhere is expired or not working or something, right? Anyways, so by the way, what I'm trying to tell is, let's say I have a wallpaper, right? And when I click on set as wallpaper, so this thing works nicely on Android, right? It is built on Flutter, but the same feature of setting a wallpaper on iOS, there was no support from the Flutter, like even community packages. So in that case, what you have to do is you have to again write the iOS related features within a separate code block where you are targeting just the iOS devices. So this kind of mixed up code, if you do, so it becomes difficult to maintain within the same app. So it's always a better choice to build an iOS app in a completely different, like Swift UI makes it very easy to do it with declarative programming. So so that is what my personal opinion lies. And let me see a few more questions. Can't stay that long. Can you show us how to make a simple website using Gemini? Okay, so I have one request to show simple website. Yes, Soligence, I'll try to do this building a website in my future session, because right now we are building this Flutter app. So let me finish this app, and after this app is finished, basically let me quickly see so I had actually decided to follow this timeline for building my apps, right? Because these are the apps that I have already worked on when I was a software engineer, worked for various companies. While working for them, I had worked on these apps, right? And worked as a team sometimes, right? And so on, right? So this one travel planning app is a Flutter app. So by the way, prior to this, there was a lead generation web app, which I had also live streamed in my another channel. And so that was like a web or website or Next.js app. So I'm telling you for Soligence that I have already worked on this, right? And even in my last week, I had built one Canva clone. That was also a web app built on Next.js. So you can watch that live stream also, right? So within this, I have this process gamification, which will come after the social network, right? Now, I can understand to keep things a little diverse. So after doing one Flutter app, I can take up this process gamification and work on that, and that will be a web app, right? And this Flutter app, this sports social network, I can move it down the chain, right? So I'm happy to respect the preferences of my audience, right? If you want me to next work on the web app, and not this sports social network, then fine, I will I'll do so. Okay, so this is my like a plan in general to work on these apps. Velvet Roads. Can we turn a website into mobile app later? So yes and no. Okay. I know this is like a very weird kind of answer. So a website by itself cannot be turned into a mobile app. Okay, but you can see that website within the mobile various ways. So the sort of the very oldest way which people have been doing is they take the website, they put it inside something called web view. Okay, so every Android app, iOS app, both have a dedicated browser window in it. Okay, it is not Safari, it is not Chrome. So Android has its own web view, right, which is powered by some sort of a browser engine, and it is not Chrome, right? It is built using WebKit only, Chrome's engine, but it is a different which is packaged within Android SDK, right? Same with iOS. So within these web view, what you can do is you can pass the URL of your website, and somebody can see your website inside the web view, right? And by the way, URL of that will be hidden from the user, so user will not know that he's actually looking at a website inside a app. Okay, so this has been the oldest way of doing it, but I mean, this is a very, very common scenario, and Google again understood the need there, right? That what community wants. So then they have built something called progressive web app. Okay, so if you want, so by the way, progressive web app is basically a website, right? It's a normal website which runs on your standard Chrome browser, right? It loads in the standard Chrome browser, but there are certain practices if you follow, like installing a service worker and setting up a manifest file with its own icon and things, and also supporting the offline mode. So you can have it as a launchable app within your home screen, right, of your Android and iOS. Even you can launch it from the browser, from the OS, right, like from the Windows or from the Mac. Okay, so these are progressive web apps, which is basically the websites, but they come with this feature which you can sort of install it or add it to your home screen. So for a user experience point of view, like user sees app icon in its phone and it clicks on it and it launches the app. So progressive web app also provides that same feature. You will get the app icon on the user's screen, and you'll click on it and it will launch your website, right? Again, it will not launch your website in the browser window. It will launch in its own window, and the URL will be hidden. And so this is like Google's way of enabling developers to build these kind of apps. So you have already built a website, you just support it as a progressive web app, and you got it installed on users devices. Okay, so that is one way. Now the third option is where you actually build an app and use the details of your website to populate your app. For that, what you can do is so let's say you have a CMS, right, like WordPress or like any other CMS, right, content management system, and your website is powered by content management system. So CMS has API, and with this API your browser website is fetching details and rendering it. The same details your mobile app, a completely built separate dedicated mobile app, right, separate from this website, the UI of it, right, is built, and then it uses the same API to populate its values, its details. There you have a complete control of user experience because it is mobile. So you can build any kind of user experience you want, which is more suited for mobile, because websites have to work on desktop, iPads, and things like that, right? But if you're building a dedicated mobile app, you can do a lot more there, right? In fact, dedicated features like notifications and many other things, right? So, but you can use the API to fetch the details, the same details which your website is rendering. Okay, I hope I answered, and let me take a couple of more. So what's the time? Okay. How? Okay, again, Velvet Roads. How do we put our website online so people can visit it? How do we put our website online so people can visit it? Okay. So for a website to be online, you need it to be available on a domain, right? But before that, you need to have your website available within a web server. Okay. By the way, nowadays, if you're building a static website, right, which is like just renders an HTML page, you don't even need a server. Nowadays, we have these storage, cloud storage, right, like CDN, content distribution network. You can just use a CDN and you can put your static website in a CDN, and it is like a cache, right, which is accessible across the world, and your app can be served through the CDN without actually charging anything. But that is only for static websites, and by static means HTML, CSS, and Java and client-side JavaScript, right? Even a React app is a static website if it is exported, or even a Next.js app if it is exported as a static app, right? That means it does not require any server component. It does not have any backend API connecting with it. Okay. But if you have some sort of a backend connected to your website, then you need to have it on a server, right? There are two choices. You can go with like a virtual machine, right? Or you can go with the serverless APIs using Cloud Functions. Now these are all depend on the use case, right? So it depends what kind of app or website you have and how your users are going to use it. Based on that, you can choose if it can be hosted on a CDN, it should be hosted on a virtual machine, or it should be hosted on a serverless architecture infrastructure, right? So that is all dependent. Okay, sir, how much does it cost to host a Flutter web app versus a regular website? Okay, Latashi, so Flutter is not for a web app. I'm sorry if there was some confusion. Flutter is actually only for building mobile apps, Android or iOS. Yes, I know there is some sort of a development going where you can also, build a web apps for Flutter, but I would not count on it that much, because the core feature, the core use case of the Flutter was to build mobile apps, and you build one Flutter mobile app and you can launch it in both in the Android and the iOS. And you said about the cost. So mobile apps in Android store, you don't have to pay anything for the developer. I think once I paid $25 and my developer license is still valid on the Android store. However, in iOS, you have to each year pay $100 if you want to launch any of your iOS app, right? Each year, $100, you have to keep renewing your developer account. Okay, how do we put, sorry, how much does it cost to host? What if I want to add a payment system? Is that easier with Flutter or regular web? So payment system, it depends. If this if they have the SDK for the Flutter, then you can integrate it. If they don't have SDK for Flutter, then you might have to find some alternate routes to doing it, like at the server side end. So it depends what kind of payment system you want to integrate. You have to read through their documentation to find if they have a good support for Flutter. Okay, last question. If a client's website needs handle 10,000 users at once, would you still recommend Flutter Web or switching to something else? If a client's website needs handle 10,000 users. Okay, again, this Flutter Web is a bit confusing there, because Flutter is not for web, Flutter is for Android and iOS. And so 10,000 users again is not dependent on Flutter because it runs on client. So every user is going to have its own Android app running. So the load is actually only one user per smartphone, right? But at the backend, yes, there'll be multiple apps running simultaneously, let's say 10,000 users. So because at the backend the Flutter is not running, it is either like Node.js or Python or PHP, like whatever backend API you have integrated. Like in our case, we have used this Cloud Function with Node.js, right? So the question becomes 10,000 users within this Node.js in a cloud function. Perfectly fine, because let me remind you, since it's a cloud function, it's scalable. It can launch multiple processes. Also, we have to make sure that it is stateless, and since it is communicating with the cloud firestore, so it does not have any state in it, so it is stateless. That means it can actually scale very as much as it needs to handle this 10,000 users traffic, right? So no problem there. Okay, friends, I really hope that all my answers which I gave to these questions were helpful to you, and I'm getting back to my app. So working on the app further. So I'm just closing this timeline. So our cloud function is deployed with this updated Maps API key. Now let me run this Flutter run app, and let's see what we have got. So again, clicking on generate itinerary, and it loads, and it does not takes us to next screen. That means definitely our cloud function has failed. No problem. We have to debug it. That's what developers do. So we will again launch the logs and see what's going on. Okay, generating itinerary, and then we got some Axios error. Request failed with status code 403, and that's it. And we have a response object, I suppose, to this routes API. This routes, okay, let me see if it has added another API key or something. So it is still Maps API. That is calling routes but using Maps API key. I think there could be the problem. Okay, let's do one thing, because previous error we found out that we need to use Places API. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enable the Places API. I've enabled the Places API, and because we have checked that same documentation, that same API key was actually working with the Places API also, so it should have been fine. But let me just confirm it once more. We'll see its restrictions. Does it has, yeah, it has Places API in it. Sorry, the new Places API also. So I think that same API should work fine there. So I just needed to enable the Places API, and that should do it. So let's hit hit the generate itinerary again and see what we get. Again, we actually get an error. That's fine. We again need to check the log and identify what's going on. And we are still getting 4 or 3. It says just bad request. So I have a doubt, and the doubt is this API which Google Gemini has written the code for calling. There's definitely something wrong here. It could be that the API has got updated with some new details, and the Google Gemini, while it was getting trained, was not using the updated details. So it might be that there is something wrong within this calling the API, because this compute routes API is where it's giving the error, right? So let's do one thing, and go to Places API. There was a documentation link, and we'll use that documentation link. Places API new guides. Excuse me. So it's calling this compute routes, but this doesn't look like Places API to me. Yeah, this is Places API. But this, I think we need to work something on this routes. So basically, I saw it is making call to this routes.google APIs, which by its name does not look like Places API, because if you see Places API, it starts with places.google APIs. So it has called this routes API, but nowhere it has mentioned that I need to enable this routes API or anything. So I'm trying to ask from Google Gemini itself that you are calling this API, but you did not mention which API do I need to enable, which API key do I need to add. So I'm just getting that confirmation. So by the way, if you are a developer and who's trying to get into vibe coding, so this moonlighting session which I do, the whole point is that I show you live what it is like to be a vibe coder or a developer who uses AI as a companion. So you still need to come in, right, with all your knowledge, with all your skill, with all your debugging skill, with all your prior knowledge, right, without which you will get stuck at various places which Google Gemini or any model for so matter, which is till date, right, will not be able to solve it, and you will get issues. So you still need a lot of expertise to solve these issues. So the user is asking for clarification on the APIs being used. They are correct to the question. I need to explain that itinerary generation uses two APIs: Google Maps Platform, Routes API, and Places API. Okay, I'll clarify this to the user. And okay, this is intentional. So this is routes API and this is a places API. Okay. So I think we just need to enable one more API, which is the routes API. And let me find it, which is this one. So let me enable it. Okay, so our routes API is also enabled. Again, I'll make sure that the credential that I'm using, that API key, that has the support of routes API as well. Routes, yes, routes API is also here. So the same API key should work fine with the routes API also. So that's great. We are gonna go back to the app. API is enabled. We'll click on generate itinerary, and of course something may break again, and it did not. And by the way, voila! So this time, this is not a dummy trip, right? This is actually trip. This is actual trip going from London to Paris. Although the itinerary is not very useful because it just starts at, I think, what, 11:30 p.m. at night, and then ends at 1:32 a.m. in the morning, and it does not even tell same day, next day, or like 5 days after, right? So that is one thing, and it does not give any like a detailed plan about, you know, where to stop, or where to have breakfast, where to do other stuff, right? So, but we have actually got a working sort of a itinerary engine, right? Which is what we aim to do. So the itinerary generation engine. So indeed our itinerary is getting generated. Okay, let's do one thing. So what we're gonna do is, let's try a couple of more places. Okay, I hate this thing. Why is this coming? Okay, so let's go from New York to San Francisco. Okay, if I can spell Cisco. Cisco. Okay, so the time is also okay. The time, actually, it's taking the current time 23:33, which is the current time, and it's just adding 2 hours after it, and it did the same for London to Paris. Is New York to San Francisco just 2 hours away? Yeah. And this is, by the way, drive distance. So okay, there are a few logs. So let's see, maybe we can see from logs that what exactly is going on here. Generating itinerary New York to San Francisco from 0 potential places. From 0 potential places. Okay. This is a try catch. Where does it say found potential places? Yeah, here. Right. This found potential places, which comes from places response, which is this one. Okay. But route duration is missing. Why is there no route duration? Route duration. Yeah, in seconds it's mentioning. Okay. So route duration, it is telling in seconds. So basically route duration we got from this routes API, right? So using routes API, we have got our duration, and that's what we are mentioning here in seconds. So yeah, since duration. Okay. So basically what we're trying to do is this algorithm which has been implemented to generate this itinerary, right? I'm trying to debug this algorithm, right? Because the some result is generating, but I'm not very sort of content with the kind of a result, and I see it doesn't look very realistic, right? So there is something quite off here, right? So that's what I'm trying to debug this algorithm, that how it is generating these itinerary, and that's what we're trying to see. Okay, so route duration is in seconds, and the key thing is that the found 0 potential places, right? So that is one thing. So we have this sort of a hint, so we can ask Gemini that no matter wherever I try, I'm always getting this 0 potential places, and the same is happening when I try London to Paris, or I do New York to San Francisco. So that sort of gives it a hint, right? That in between London to Paris or New York to San Francisco, if you are doing a trip, there should be some lot of potential places. Then why it is not giving, right? So that way it might identify that there is some flaw somewhere, and it might try to fix it. Okay, so let's quickly try that. So I'm going to take the log. And just to make sure, if I'm not missing on some, like maybe it is not expecting me to put the like distances between like London to Paris or New York to San Francisco are quite large. So it may be not expecting this large distance to be put for source and destination. So let me see. Let me ask it, how do you suggest I test it? Okay. And it has gone ahead and sort of trying to update the entire function. And why did it do that? Let's try to know. The user is reporting the Places API call is not returning any results, even for long distance trips like New York to San Francisco. This suggests a problem with how I'm searching for places. The current implementation calculates a single midpoint for entire trip and searches in a 20-kilometer radius around it. For a trip across a continent, this is a tiny area and likely to be the middle of nowhere. Yeah, see. So the way this algorithm was implemented, the Gemini, was having this 20-kilometer of radius, right? But I am trying the trips between 2 continents. Okay, so that's where. But it has now modified it. The flawed approach of long distance travel. A much better strategy would be to get the steps, iterate through these steps. For each step, use this start end at the center of a place, aggregate the result, multiple search, so blah blah blah, and it has implemented its new algorithm. And now we are going to test this new algorithm, which works across the continental distances, right? So maybe it was a bit over ambitious for me to try to check a test between these long distances. I should have maybe tested like short distances only, right? So anyways, so we have to update our function. because that's where the change happened, right? So let's do that. Let's close our app and deploy our this updated function. And after this function is deployed, we will again run the app and test it, right? So that's the whole process. Gemini has done all the coding. I just gave it a feedback. I tested it. I tested the 2 location. I found 0 places. I mentioned it to Gemini that I'm seeing in the logs that it's not finding any places. So it has made the changes, right? And that's all. And we are testing it now. So this is how the process of vibe coding is, where you don't actually have to write the code. You are a user of the app. You are also building it, but you are more of a user who is using the app while building it, and whatever the feedbacks you get, you share it with Gemini, and it's Gemini's responsibility to fix any issues if there are logical errors, algorithmic issues, and so on. So that's what Gemini is doing, and you just keep on progressing building the app. Okay, so my wallpaper app keep on opening, and let me just quickly go to the home screen. Again, I have to wait till this function gets deployed. I cannot fast forward or skip here or anything. But if you're watching the recording, you can definitely fast it forward. Function is deployed. Let's run the app. Again, London to Paris. Let's see what we get. Whoa, this is good. This is nice. This is better, much better. So now, okay, but from London we straight away jump to Eiffel Tower, which is in France, and this is better, but the thing is, from London, which is in UK, we directly landed in France. Whether it's a driving trip, there should have been few more things in between, I suppose. I don't know, but it's better. It's better than what we were just getting London to Paris, and there was nothing in between. But now at least we have few more places. We have Eiffel Tower, we have Louvre Museum, we have Arc de Triomphe, and end of trip. And there are it also tells the rating of this place. It tells how many reviews it has got. So we see now we have actually got our this itinerary generation engine working. Okay, but let's test it with few more things. What is let's try a destination within UK, from London to Wales. Buckingham Palace, Tower Bridge, British Museum. Okay, now we have got some it's not that advanced or that useful itinerary yet that I was thinking, because of course it needs some quite a bit logic there, like finding the restaurants, places to stay, things like that. But it's a good start, and so I'm pretty happy with what we have got. And just let's do some more things. New York to San Francisco, so Florida. Let's see, New York, Central Park, Times Square, Rockefeller Center, Florida. Nothing in between these. Okay, but at least we are getting something now, right? Which earlier was just 2 destinations. So we definitely have a lot of scope to improve this itinerary, right? Let's review this development plan and see if there is anything. Itinerary generation engine, backend logic, cloud function, itinerary generation algorithm. We have the save, visualization, user authentication, advanced features, itinerary customization. Okay, so let's do this thing. So we have this milestone 5 where we are gonna have some advanced features built into it, where we are actually going to have more customizations into the itinerary and so on. So I'm thinking we'll leave our itinerary at that. Excuse me. Right? Itinerary generation logic I'm talking about, right? But I want to now work a little bit on the and which is also the milestone 3, which is this itinerary visualization. Right, so although there is a visualization already here, but I have something in my mind, right? I have some sort of thing that it should look like this, okay? Because as I said, when I was working on this app, I had built this itinerary by myself, right? The UI of it, I had built it, right, for that company. So I have some sort of an inspiration of that same itinerary. So I want to use that inspiration to further customize this itinerary's look and feel. So that's where what basically we'll leave this app as it is for now, right? So for this session, I think this is a good progress we have made. So today we have actually got a working itinerary generation, right, which is a good thing. And next I'm gonna actually work on some UI enhancements. Okay, so this home screen is looking very basic. This source and destination, just 2 inputs, it doesn't look so interesting, right? So we'll again have a vibe coding session with Gemini. We are going to use its inputs, that how we can improve the user experience here for source and destination. Do we put a map itself where user can place a pin along with the search option to search for a destination? The map automatically scrolls to that place and all, like right, all those sort of UI details we're gonna discuss with Gemini. And then also the itinerary screen, it currently looks very basic, very plain. We need to improve the UI of it. It need to look like some modern app, right? So that's what we're gonna do in our next stream. And I would say, yeah, this stream was quite successful. This session was quite successful because we were having a dummy itinerary plan generated to a real itinerary plan generated, although it is missing few features, but we have a milestone, dedicated milestone for that itinerary customization, where we can implement those improvements anyways. So I think we are actually making a good progress there. So yeah, I mean, that's about it for today's this moonlighting session. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from it. And and I really appreciate so many people have commented and asked questions, and I hope I was able to answer their questions also. If you still have questions, you have my next live stream, connect in my next live stream, ask me more questions, whatever questions you have. And I hope you are actually building this app yourself, right? I mean, you are connecting with me, and you are using Gemini API in your own VS Code, and just doing the same thing which I'm doing. Maybe if not this app, you may be building another Flutter app, but you are seeing how the process is, following the same process for building your own app, whatever app you have imagined, whatever app you want to build. So it's completely up to you. And that is all. Tomorrow is going to be my another automation workflow, and then day after tomorrow is another vibe coding session, moonlighting session, where we are gonna continue with this app. We're gonna improve its UI, we're gonna improve its homepage, we're gonna improve its itinerary detail screen, and so on and so forth. So friends, thank you for joining today's stream, and and see you next time. So thank you very much.